and the RT Cosmin, we've got two amazing panelists, George, Polish, and that's WD, thank you. And our corporate conversation is to say finance and sustainability, and Jeff from the Alliance Football Club is going to talk about women and girls football perspective. So just before we sort of kick off, and Jess, I'll come to you first, I just wanted to set the scene around sustainability. It's the latest topic of conversation, how for many years it's a growing conversation in world of sport, as well as AI and data and tech. It's a pretty big conversation. I think sustainability is there to stay. We started years ago in my world when I started in sustainability or social impact, talk about CSR. And CSR, social responsibility within businesses. And that's moved on, it still does very much exist. I think purpose is much more of the buzzword that we all use now. ESG, environmental, social and governance strategies, which I'm sure we're all just going to touch on. And then more recently, it's probably 10 years that Harvard created this, the corporate shared value. I don't know if you're familiar with that more, but prospect and purpose. If you drive a business that is purposeful, you are going to be a concept. And that is now driving brands 222% less commercial increase in their business revenue. It's now some promise for good businesses. So it's working. It's top down. Sustainability is the big conversation. It is government. It is environmental. It is social. It's a huge conversation, and it is legacy. Like everything we do in the world, the sustainability is a new legacy. It's building change. We talked a lot about impact. So we're going to try and touch on that legacy element today when we're talking. And without answering here, I'm going to throw a few extra questions in. So hopefully you've got that few very good start. So Jess, I'll come to you first. Give us some examples of sports-led sustainability in the World Alliance football club and what we're doing for within else football.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Alliance Football Club, we talk a lot more about, it's not just about football, it's more than just football. So we're more than a football club. We prioritize being eco-friendly. We then also prioritize investment into a female-led pathway and the development of our female development program. So what we offer for women and girls. I came into Alliance only 2.5 years ago. So I came into a culture where the eco-friendly side of things was embedded into what we do. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in this because it's not my forte, but it is in our everyday lives. And same with the incentive and the investment in female-led sustainability. So, for instance, our owner is male, but he is heavily invested in promoting females and promoting a sustainable, eco-friendly club. So I think we won an award for being like the first eco-friendly club. And I know there's reference earlier, like, what does that even mean? I don't know, but what it looks like day to day is, for instance, we don't use single-use plastic. We have stainless steel bottles. We have tote bags, canvas tote bags, and these are things that are embedded into our day-to-day lives. Alliance, obviously, that comes with challenges. In terms of our female pathway, he has an investment. He has 2 daughters, so he has an interest in it, and I see him as an enabler. So he's enabled me to be able to bring this to life and develop a full female coach cohort. I think we're the only one here in the UAE. We have now 50% female staff, 50% and almost overtaking female players at the club. Now, going off the session before lunch, I might go back to the drawing board and reassess that. But for me, that's a huge success. And it's what we pride ourselves on, in giving women and girls a platform to shine.
Amazing. And on the eco-friendly bit on that, we'll also kind of come back and come to you a bit more on that in a minute. So sustainable finance. And some people probably think about it as well. Not that you should in the world, but that's very exciting. So George, tell us about everything we did. Your role is kind of the chief lead for Emirates, the sustainable finance, and how your organisation is integrating that across the room clients, and give us some examples of some of the exciting things that you've been working on.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having me, and thank you, Siga, for organizing this amazing panel. I feel overwhelmed with the number of women looking at me, so I'm gonna choose carefully my words, not to mess around. So, as you said, sustainability is the topic of the talk of the town. I would say that it's been the subject for the past 2-3 years, which grew a lot when the UAE hosted the COP28, and especially in the UAE because they are taking the topic very seriously and trying to really do an impact and the change. Where the role of banks come here is that banks has been always an enabler of the economy. We provide financing to companies to enable and to promote growth. Without banks, you don't have growth in the economy, you don't have enabling and prosperity. Having banks on board the sustainable finance and shifting from just traditional finance to more sustainable finance means that banks are currently enabling the sustainability world with all their corporate clients. We've been doing this for almost now 5-6 years, but in the past 2 years, sustainable finance and the discussion we had with our clients are growing. Clients are coming to us to seek understanding and how we can develop with them a sustainability agenda. Having a sustainability agenda for a corporate or for a football club is cross-sectorial. It's the same tools that can be applied to all sectors. And having initiatives enabled for a client that is an airline or a retailer similarly can be applied to sports. I'll give you an example. Recently, we've been structuring financing solution. I'm not going to use technical words because this will make you bored. So we've been structuring financing. And to be able to provide an enabling to the clients, we have set targets around sustainability. We have environmental targets and social targets. What is more important, I guess, for this panel is to focus on the social targets. And social targets are core of the ESG and sustainability. Because when you do an impact on the social aspect, there will be definitely an impact on the environmental aspect. And for example, we push our clients to have women in senior management, and not just women in percentage of total workforce, because some of the clients would increase the number of women in the workforce, but at a very low level, which won't do a proper impact towards the empowerment of women as leaders for the future. And therefore, we try to emphasize the need to have either women in senior management or women on board. So women that do have the power to take a decision, and not just women that are here to work. We know that some women need to work, but we also need to empower women to grow and take decisions. And we also work with our clients to have a career path. So if the client says it will be difficult for us to have women in leadership currently because it's not yet on the agenda, or for example, the industry is very tight to have such a KPIs, we work with them and put KPIs on providing with women a certain level of trainings and so on, so that they can improve their career path and be in the future part of the leadership of the company.
Amazing. And how do you do that? So, a client comes to you and run through their ESG strategy, the ESG target, and you implement stuff. Is that something that you just, you're kind of telling them to do? And how does that come to life? And is it a long-term strategy?
So usually these are KPIs that we set and that are linked to the finance. So clients are really keen to have discounts on the price. So if these KPI, and they are long-term KPI. So for example, we had last year a client in the retail business where he structured financing, and one of the KPIs was to achieve a certain percentage of the women as senior leadership. And here the discussion came that he was like, he wanted to go as low as an assistant manager and consider it as a leadership. And here came the discussion saying, what is the power of this woman as an assistant manager in terms of decision making that will influence the company? And when we understood this, we explained that this is not senior leadership, and then we revamped with the clients the KPIs to make sure that the woman will have will be a decision maker and not just it's a number on the KPIs. And these KPIs, so if the client meets these KPIs, the bank will provide them with a certain discount on the price. So there is an incentive for the client to meet the KPIs because he will have financial incentive on the other. And we do not accept KPIs that are less than what we have at Emirates NBD, because in the past couple of years, Emirates NBD has been empowering women by setting really strong KPIs for women in senior management and in the executive committee. And these KPIs are part of the KPIs of our executive committee and our board. So, and their remuneration, the board remuneration and the executive committee remuneration is linked to the KPIs of having senior women in senior leadership.
Amazing. And, you know, like I said, a couple of different of that. Katie said to use Bjorn Powell, and I wasn't going to tell you this, but I'll tell you this. I'm a good advocate of them at NBD. I came to the advisory years ago. I came from Hong Kong, China, where I had my business and it was quite easy for me to bank out. When I came here, I really struggled. As a female entrepreneur, to set up my own business bank account, and this NBD is probably one of the only ones that allow me to do it. So I want to say thank you, because clearly what is happening within your banking structure is supporting female leadership within the Emirates. So thank you very much. Yes, let's move on to the eco-friendly football companies. I'm really excited about this. Can you sort of explain what does that mean in terms of how you run the density up? And then what happens in terms of educating something on people as well? And then how do you then keep and sustain that eco-friendly environment when you're doing control of it, aren't you, in your own home? And then you go outside and then you're still trying to keep control of that eco-friendly kind of ethos. Talk us through the system you use and any challenges are on.
Yeah, it's not easy. Obviously, we can control the controllables within when we're at our own pitch, using our own facilities. The education piece is huge. So we reference, like, we don't use single-use plastic, so we don't allow any plastic bottles on the pitch. Players are issued as part of their members pack with stainless steel water bottle that is then part of the process when they arrive at the pitch, is that they then are directed, please can you use these water bottle holders, pop your water bottle in there, take part in your session. We often have players come with the wrong bottles. They might bring plastic bottles, they might bring completely different branded bottles. And it's just a continuous encouragement from coaching staff, from peers even, picking out your leaders within the group and saying, look, this is what we're about, this is why we're doing it. Huge education piece. The challenge comes when we can't control the environment. So, for instance, we compete in the YFL League at 7 Stadium on a Sunday. We have reusable bottles, but there is nowhere for us to then refill the bottles. So players are expected to purchase or bring enough water with them. I think ours is like 900 ml, something like that. So it's not going to last full day in 40-degree heat at 7 Stadium. The big challenge for us now is how do we deal with that? So at the moment, we're bringing water, because priorities then to be hydrated, in plastic bottles. But I'm very conscious that we need to address that. It's a short-term thing, so that obviously they're in a position where they can perform, because their health is obviously number one priority. But now I need to assess how do we address this and make sure that we're aligned to our values.
I think it's amazing, I guess, what all young people learn and they take from at home as well. I'll never forget how something went to school when he was 5 years old, and I'm putting a butter on the table, and he said, "Lily, I need to check that has got palm oil in it." I'm like, we'll start to get all turned up in it. So we learned about it at school. We can't have that in the house. It's amazing what I think what you're teaching the young people. Do you feel like they're taking this on board, they're taking it home?
I think if the message is consistent enough and they understand why, then it's a lot easier. But it takes buy-in, and it takes buy-in from staff, it takes buy-in from parents, and that all comes back down to education.
Yeah. And I think the schools are great now at teaching this. And if I was taught environmental climate change in my school, but hopefully becoming much more magical in the education system. George, I just want to come back to Italian Emirate MBP. So you talked about clients and what we're doing on EI. What's happening internally with it and with development and how we're being to attract opportunity?
Before getting there, I'm gonna give some insights to Jess on the issue of plastic bottle. Having plastic bottle is not it's on the opposite. It's something that's it because you still need plastic in the economy. Having to ban plastic completely won't happen. The idea is that you need to properly recycle plastic, and this is something very important because in everything you need plastic, but you don't need the cheap plastic. And there is with water bottles and plastic water bottles, you should emphasize people and your trainee and your athletes to recycle the plastic without contamination, without having food in it or something else, because these are assets for you. You can sell them and generate revenue to finance your club. So there is a stereotype saying that, I'm going to ban plastic bottles. You don't need to ban plastic bottles. You need to properly recycle.
Then you just said he's going to do some further work.
No, and we can, and no, because we've been working on that. We have clients that come to us saying we're going to ban plastic bottles from our offices, but then they cannot do it because they need sometimes plastic bottles, or they use other kind of cheap materials which are more polluting than just plastic bottles, and therefore we lose the sense of dropping an item and replacing it by something else.
Yeah, no, maybe in the world you see why it's heads on that basis. We're all told plastics in the ocean, it is plastics, right?
Exactly, plastic in the ocean, and that's why recycling will prevent having plastic in the ocean, and will allow us to keep having this raw material that we need, which is the plastic, for other purposes.
I think to give context, we look at reduce, reuse, recycle, but maybe we need to look at that bolt-on of the recycling element more so than just don't use it.
Exactly. Especially when you're unable to control it.
Yeah.
When you can control it, then it's perfectly fine. But when you're unable to control it, it's better to either reuse or recycle. Going back to Emirates NBD's initiatives on sustainability, on the environmental aspect or the social aspect, I touched a word before on the social aspect where there is KPIs for women empowerment and for women in senior leadership, or providing women with trainings and placing women at the right place and really empowering women across the bank, especially that the banking industry is an industry that is also prone to attract women. We also with our clients we provide SME financing for women entrepreneurs. We have also worked with a lot of women entrepreneurs that are UAE nationals under the startup program that we have, where we provided them with insights and incentive to grow their company. And one of them was a really success story. The company is called Rebound. They do recycling of plastics and they do trading of plastic. And she's a local. Her company is growing, and it's a great success story that we can share. On the internal front, on the environmental aspect, at Emirates NBD, we really take this very seriously. where we have committed to the UAE net zero by 2050. So our emissions will need to be zero by 2050, similar to the UAE. And we have taken a lot of initiatives to reach that. On the electricity consumption, we have installed solar panels. We have reached 50% of our consumption from renewable energy. On the employee commute, to provide incentives to push our employees to have and adopt electric vehicles by providing them with free charging station within the premises of the bank. Even we provide this for our clients. We have been also working on water scarcity to reduce the water consumption. And most importantly, we are working because as banks, the bulk of our finance, of our emissions comes from our clients. So we work closely with our clients to push them to reduce their emissions by providing them with financing solutions that are green, developing renewable energy power plant, developing retrofits of buildings, or providing them with financing that are linked to certain KPIs. Was it social aspect or on the environmental aspect, where we ask them to reduce their emissions in a way by retrofitting their buildings, by changing the way they do the business, adopting more renewable energy compared to conventional energy. So all these are initiatives that we are taking to help the bank be green and help our clients be greener and more environmental friendly, and as an ultimate effect, help the UAE reach their net zero, because the net zero of the UAE is linked to each of the economic players of the UAE.
I think that it's the first time we've sort of touched on environmental conversation today, and we know some and female guys, male fans are asking your questions to spokesperson to really follow that financial value chain. So it's such an important conversation. I'm just conscious of time as we are overrunning, and this bit I can look at the time. I've just got one more question. Just to Jess. It's a great question, so hopefully she can condense it down into one hit. The female coaches in football, that female coaches that in the holds, we know the dial is moving in the right direction. Tokyo 2020, 30% coaches holding in across the whole games. The dial is moving. What more can be done as a female coach, a female leader, to break down barriers, increase female leaders in the game?
I think I've heard the word used throughout the day is being intentional with the decisions that are made around who is appointed. It's very challenging with recruitment. We see it here in the UAE that I'm trying to bring female coaches in from outside or find them within. And it's not enough just to be female. They have to be competent. They have to be good at what they do. I think globally we are seeing a rise and a change. We're obviously quite a few years behind. When I look back, my role models, the coaches that I aspired to be like, were all male. The enablers that I had were all male. I think before I left the FA to come to Dubai, there were some roles around like national coach educators. And me and my friends, who were all coaches at the time, looking at each other saying, who's going to fill these, because we're not there yet. And now we've got to the point where they're my peers. So it is happening. I think it's just making sure that the female decision makers, people are in those positions in order to enable and open doors for the females that are competent.
Amazing. Thank you so much. The meeting to talk about this and don't like it today. But I know you need to wrap up. So thank you, George. Thank you, Jess. And yeah, I'm sure we're around to keep thinking about it. Thank you.